Life, Death, and Neighbours. I want to express the warmest of thanks to the World Community for Christian Meditation for their invitation to be here, because an invitation to address a group like this is always an open door into discovery for oneself. Many years I've lived as an ascetic and everybody praises me, but though I'm an old man, I still have a lot of trouble with sexual fantasy.
Good evening, Rowan. It's the 20th of June 2016 and it's about 1 a.m. And obviously I'm making you my usual end of the weekend video to reassure you I haven't been seducing any priests. But I have been on the lookout though for when I'm off the leash, and then I'll be seducing priests when you're already in prison. I just can't stop thinking about it. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait. I really can't wait. Anyway, I thought we could have another chat this evening about your pseudo spiritual mumbo jumbo or lunacy, as you might call it. Because it is, in fact, when you go off on your pseudo spiritual journeys, shall we say, that your lunacy is more at the forefront. So, I'm going to talk this evening about some talks that you gave. I'm not entirely sure when the talks were, but it was in summer last year, and the videos were uploaded onto YouTube towards the end of August. This was about just over a month, 6 weeks or so after I was thrown out of my house, and you were convinced I was going to capitulate, like you're going. You're totally convinced that that's what's going to happen with every evil thing you imagine to subject me to. Um, and so far, I haven't capitulated. And you haven't learnt anything from that because you're a psychopath and you can't learn. And I keep, explaining this to you, but you do keep on and on. But anyway, it's quite good fun taking the piss out of you. I know you accused me of being a clown, but as I said, it's really easy to take the piss out of you because you just talk so much shit. And anyway, even if you stop talking shit now, there's still an absolute mountain of shit that you've talked that I haven't even got through yet. So there's plenty to keep me going. So don't worry at all about that. But please, by all means, come out with something else so we can all have another good laugh. Anyway, without further ado, I shall move on to these talks. I'm only making a couple of comments. Actually, there is so much in these talks I could comment on. I might make another video about it, but there's just too much insanity to kind of take up and explain all in one video. It's quite wearing, your insanity. But anyway, I shall move on to it now. So, um, you say, if we're trying to reimagine the Christian life together, well, my first question is, why are we trying to reimagine the Christian life? What is wrong with the way that we imagine it already? You haven't given any explanation of that, have you? You're always implying that there's some better way of doing things. Now, I'm not saying that the church is perfect by any means, but it has survived for 2,000 years already. Nearly 2,000 years, even before you were born. So I'm not too sure that we need you to come and save us from anything, especially not since you've sold yourself to Satan and your intentions are purely subversive and destructive. So you say, if we're trying to reimagine the Christian life together, I think I would underline particularly two words which we need redefining. One is life, one is gain. Well, this is already two amazingly insane statements in the first sentences that you say on this topic. If we're trying to reimagine the Christian life, well, you haven't explained why, as I've said. And now you think you've got the authority to redefine words in the English language. This is just complete and utter lunacy. I mean, the whole point of having words is that they mean something. So when people who speak the same language hear those words, they know what they mean, and then everybody knows what everybody else is talking about. You can't just go around redefining words because you want them to mean something else. This is one of the ways that you twist the gospel round and twist the Christian message round. You just redefine all the words and say it means something else. And then, of course, you also make quotations from Jesus, saying things that he never even said. But anyway, I do have a question about these words that you're redefining. Well, what I'd like to know is, are you just redefining them in English, or are you going to go around every language in the world and redefine the words in those languages as well? Because it could get quite complicated otherwise. We'd need to redefine all the words everywhere, wouldn't we? You're completely insane. Honestly, you think you're saving the world in response to a bogus environmentalist crisis that you know perfectly well is bogus as well. You think you're saving the church by reimagining Christianity, and you think you've got the authority to just redefine words in English. It's absolutely staggering. How is it that no one noticed that you were mad before now? Anyway. So these are the two words that you redefine, life and gain. I'm not going to define them because I'm going to define them later on in the video. So you say life here, the life that is with the neighbour, is primarily and precisely the life that is being free to let God give through you. Being free to let God give through you. You repeat that. That's quite an annoying habit that Anglican clergy have, actually. Repeating things in sermons that they think is very important. They must teach them this in theological college. I've heard a lot of people do it. It's not just you, so it's a sermon technique in the Church of England. It makes you sound very pompous, actually. Anyway, being free to let God give through you. So this is life, and it's very important that people take that in. So you've said it twice. You've described this, the life that is with the neighbour is primarily and precisely. Well, you've used the word precisely here. This is another thing that you do as well. You use words in unusual contexts, which actually, if you pay attention to what you're actually saying, this also makes you sound quite insane. The life that is with the neighbour is primarily and precisely the life that is being free to let God give through you. So this is exactly what life is. Being free to let God give through you. That's what you mean. It's precisely this. It's exactly that. And it's primarily that, before anything else, before even just being animate and breathing or being able to move about and reproduce. Life is primarily, before anything else, in other words, before anything else, primarily, it's being free to let God give through you. Well, that's just complete lunacy. This is what I mean about you using words in unusual contexts. There's some nice assonance there, actually, primarily and precisely. That's probably why you said it. You do say things in quite a poetic way. It's just unfortunate they're completely insane and they don't actually mean anything in the real world. Which is because you live in a fantasy world in your head and you think you can just create reality, and then you get very confused when other people aren't going along with your version of reality, because it's entirely invented and it doesn't take actual reality into consideration. So you say, because all of these various pathologies of the spirit which arise in the common life, Well, this is quite interesting as well because a pathology of the spirit, well, a pathology is a medical thing anyway. So I think you're trying to sound like you've got some good insight into people and you know about mental health and that kind of thing. And mental illnesses are all fictitious anyway. They were invented by psychiatrists so that they could prescribe a lot of drugs and make a lot of money for themselves and drug companies. So there's no such thing as a mental illness. But now, I mean, so we had pathology moved from the body to the mind by psychiatrists, and now you're moving it to the spirit as well, which I don't know what you mean by that exactly, the soul or something like that. These pathologies of the spirit which arise in the common life. Well, this shows your collectivist world view anyway, because if somebody has a pathology or a tendency to a certain sin, which we might say in Christian life, then that doesn't arise in the common life. It arises in the person. It's part of their nature having this tendency. So the common life might bring it out. But this illustrates your understanding of the world and of other people, that they're only actually ciphers in relationship with you. You don't understand that they have any inherent identity and values and beliefs and wishes and that kind of thing. And this is why people who don't go along with your evil agenda and give you what you want seem wicked and insane to you. You're not the only person that's like that, but you're quite extreme in your expression of it, shall we say, or your attitude. This attitude is very deeply ingrained in your personality and it comes out again and again in the things that you say. So then you suggest some of these pathologies of the spirit, and you say the urge to cement your superiority, the urge to pass judgment and to shut out, all of these are ways of not allowing God to give through you. Well, this is quite funny, isn't it? Because you usually use the royal we when you're trying to coerce people and manipulate them into going along with your agenda. But you're talking about you now, so you're putting this outside of you. This is someone else that you're talking about. But it's actually a perfect description of you, the urge to cement your superiority, the urge to pass judgment and to shut out. All of these are ways of not allowing God to give through you. Well, this is just complete nonsense, really. I mean, well, it's lack of humility to want to cement superiority, which is what you do. You're very narcissistic and you like to dominate other people. The urge to pass judgment and shut out, well, you've done that to me over and over again, haven't you? But it's kind of what you accuse me of doing, because I think you're a scumbag and I keep saying so, and I won't have anything to do with you and your perverted friends. So you can't understand that that's because of your evil behaviour, because you don't understand my existence as a separate entity, and nor do you understand anyone else in that way either. You see other people only as giving and withholding, and if they behave in any other way, it's very confusing to you when you express this confusion. So you then go on to talk about gain, and you say, and gain, gaining the brother, gaining the neighbour. Gain is conceived purely and simply as the freedom that comes from that transparency to God as it's experienced by another person. Um, Gain is conceived purely and simply as the freedom that comes from that transparency to God as it's experienced by another person. I'm not even sure that's English, to be honest. It sounds really impressive, but it doesn't really mean anything. What on earth does it mean? The freedom that comes from that transparency to God as it's experienced by another person. This is just complete nonsense. It's like a word salad. A word salad is something that a psychotic person might say, a person experiencing psychosis. Um, it's a jumble of words that might be meaningful to the person, but it doesn't make any sense to anyone else. Um, Without a lot of exploration, anyway, let's put it that way. And that puts some very severe questions to a lot of what we take for granted about common life. Well, it doesn't really, because it doesn't mean anything at all. It's complete nonsense. It's like reading postmodernist theory. It's just incredible the crap you come out with. So you say, what if the real criteria for vital common life? So you've used this word vital here. This is another example of you using a word in a very unusual context. Vital common life. I mean, well, what does that even mean? It's just complete nonsense. You put in adjectives because you think they go well together. They sound nice with the other words that you're using. You use words because they sound nice and they've got poetic appeal, but often enough they don't mean anything at all. The sentences that you make, particularly when you're talking about the spiritual life, because you just go off in the complete fantasy that's in your head, and don't even relate it to anything concrete that's going on. Um, which I know a lot of people who are not religious think religious people are all crazy anyway. Um, but there is a difference between adhering to a doctrine, at least to some degree, and then just going off in this wild fantasy world in your head of making up sentences that don't even make any sense. I'm thinking you can redefine words in English. I mean, this is just complete madness. What if the real criteria for vital common life had to do with our failure or success in connecting another person with the possibility of reconciliation or of wholeness? Whether we are able to connect someone else with reconciliation and wholeness. So you repeated that. Well, it's not really our job, actually, as Christians. It's not our job to connect people with reconciliation and wholeness. Um, Jesus didn't say to do that. He said to preach the gospel to all nations. So what that means is you tell them what it is, and then because you regard other people as sentient, intelligent human beings, they can understand it and ask questions, and then they can decide whether they believe it or not. And whether they want to then become a Christian and practice the Christian faith. And I have noticed actually that in this talk you don't actually mention Christ at all. It's all very self-referential, everything that you say. You're talking about the Desert Fathers and things that they say, but of course you're just selecting sayings, skimming over the surface and selecting sayings that prove, in inverted commas, the points that you want to make. So I might talk a bit about that in another video. And we connect not by successfully ordering their lives towards reconciliation and wholeness, not by triumphantly solving their problems as we would love to do. Well, you speak for yourself, Rowan. You've been solving my problems of being a repressed lesbian for over 2 decades, haven't you? And a delinquent sex maniac and fantasist. And you keep repeatedly trying to solve my problems with your penis. What there is of it. So, yes, you would love to solve my problems, but my problems are all created by you. That's the problem, and you don't seem to be able to face that. You just want to terrorise me and threaten to kill me and tell me to shoot myself and to knock on doors, swallow hard and ask for money, and all these kinds of ridiculous suggestions just because you're trying to save your own skin. We connect by our own willingness to face our weakness and our faults, our own connectedness with God's mercy. Oh, well, that would be good if you ever did that, Rowan, but I haven't seen any sign of it. So, anyway, I'm going to make this in 2 videos because I don't want the memory filling up on my phone. So I'll leave it there for now, and then I'll come back to this in a minute. So you go on to say, and to live like that requires, obviously, a pervasive critical awareness of how much in the church and world we are encouraged to be competitive, to imagine success in terms of others' loss, and we pretend it isn't so, but as a matter of fact, in church or world, that's the model we work with. Well, that's the model that you work with, Rowan, because you always have to be top dog and you have to utterly obliterate anyone who makes you feel threatened or who doesn't go along with your agenda, or who doesn't want to have sex with you, basically. That's what you do. So you're talking about yourself here. You don't like the idea of winning and losing if you're losing. But if you're winning, you think it's absolutely fantastic. So you change the rules of the game according to how the game's going for you. So you're absolutely obsessed with winning and losing and making sure that you win to everyone else's expense. You've even sold your own children's future down the river. This is how obsessed you are with winning. It's the only thing that you care about. Winning, saving your skin, and ending up as top dog. That's all you care about. I sometimes wonder what life in the church would be like if we had never ever developed the concept of winning and losing. Well, you inflicted this concept on me over and over again while I was in the Anglican Church. So it's something you wholeheartedly endorse and promote and incite other people into as well. And I'm not saying that there aren't other people who really want to be winning and coming out on top of everyone else and stuff like that. But the only time people like you don't like competition is when you're not winning. As long as everyone's saying you're fantastic and wonderful and above everyone else, then you think that winning is a great thing when you're getting what you want. In many of the great controversies that face the church at the moment, it seems to me increasingly clear that nobody's going to win. Well, I wonder if you're actually talking about controversies in the church, or whether you're talking about more personal things, like you think that nobody's going to win in the situation that we're in at the moment. Um, well, somebody is going to win, and that somebody is me, Rowan, because as I've told you before, I already won. I won before you even started. You've got no hope of winning. You've backed the wrong horse. You're completely mad. Nobody's going to win. Well, I'm going to win. I've already won. So just don't waste your breath. In other words, there is not going to be a situation of sublime clarity in which one group's views will prevail because the other group simply says, "Oh, I see it all now." Well, I don't care whether you say that or not, Rowan. I don't care whether you say that or not. But I've already got a moment of sublime clarity, and I know that you're a psychopath and that you've sold your soul to Satan, and that you're a disgusting, dirty bastard who's absolutely obsessed with sex, and you think you can just snap your fingers and women should be throwing themselves at you. And it's such an affront to your ego when that doesn't happen that you've got to go around destroying them and making up a pack of lies all over the world. You're a pathetic, sad little man. You're an old age pensioner with a small penis. But I bet you're still celebrating since you found out you share a birthday with Donald Trump. But, this is you going on here, but if we're not in the business of winning and losing like that, what does the church look like? I just don't even know what that's supposed to mean, to be honest. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't politicking in the church apart from you. There's a lot of it goes on, but it certainly does in the Church of England anyway. Um, but why are you trying to get everyone else to give up the concept of winning and losing? Why are you trying to do that when you're the psychopath that you are? You want other people to be trusting everybody and to be trusting you and to stop being competitive. Um, Simply because you can't stand the competition. It's got nothing to do with the benefit of the church or society or anything like that. You don't want anyone competing with you and winning, and that's the bottom line of it. That's why you suddenly don't like competition. But whatever you're winning, competition is a great thing. Actually, did you know that John D. Rockefeller said competition is a sin? Uh, that's just before he went and put all the other oil companies out of business with Standard Oil, and started his family on their path towards world domination. They were sponsored by the Rothschilds as well. What if we were sufficiently unafraid? There's a key word. Sufficiently unafraid. Well, this is something else that you were saying quite a lot at the time because I just started criticising you on video. This is before that. So there has to be some inadequacy in me why I'm not friends with you and why I think you're a scumbag and why I won't have sex with you and why I won't capitulate and do what you want. All of this has to be because there's something wrong with me, because you're absolutely perfect and therefore there couldn't possibly be any other explanation. So the reason I'm not involving myself with you is because I'm afraid, and I need to be sufficiently unafraid so that I can involve myself with you. Well, how about if I turn up to arrest you and confront you in front of a big audience and tell everybody there that you tried to screw me and you've spent over 2 decades doing everything you can to ruin my life and discredit me and make sure no one listened to me. Would I be doing that because I was afraid? Did I confront you in Sheffield because I was afraid? And have I gone through all this torture and suffering that's been inflicted on me because I'm afraid? Well, it's irrelevant whether I'm afraid or not. I'm still not having anything to do with you. It's completely irrelevant. It's another one of your wild speculations. You were going on about how you can smell the fear, you can smell the fear. These people who object to this and that, they're so afraid. You're always pathologising your opponents because you haven't got an argument. There's a key word, sufficiently unafraid. You're talking in a very pompous way on this video, by the way. It's just absolutely unbelievable. It's almost a kind of hypnosis, trying to mesmerise your audience because what you're saying is complete and utter garbage. And so you have to mesmerise them with this style of speaking, I suppose that's what you could say. You're not using so many NLP techniques in this talk, but there's enough of them, and repeating your key phrases, which generally are complete lunacy anyway. So there's a key word, sufficiently unafraid to be able to put winning and losing on the back burner, to move away from the notion that my triumph is another's loss. Well, why don't you put winning and losing on the back burner then? And don't insinuate that you're going to have any triumph, because you're not. What if we were able to think of the health of a Christian community in terms of our ability or otherwise, our freedom or otherwise, to connect one another with the well springs of reconciliation? Well, that's another flowery statement, isn't it? But you never seem to appreciate me trying to connect you with the well springs of reconciliation, because I keep telling you to turn to Christ and repent of your sins, but all you keep doing is threatening me and insulting me and calling me a prostitute and saying I've got no option but to be a prostitute, despite the fact that I've got more than enough to live on, and I'm living in a comfortable place and I don't need anything even anyway. Um, I've said this before in a video a long time ago. The only poor women you've had any real involvement with were the drug addicts you were paying for sex when you were living in Mirfield and commuting to Leeds University. That's the only women speaking with my accent that you've had any involvement with. And you'll have asked them, oh, why did you become a prostitute or something to that effect? And they'll have told you some story, how they fell on hardship or something and they didn't have any choice. And you've constructed your whole worldview around this, around a minuscule proportion of the population. These are the only poor people you've ever listened to, and they were probably drug addicts. And these people are very looked down on in working class communities because everybody gets tarred with the same brush, which you tarring me with this brush is an obvious example of it. People do not become prostitutes. Working class people do not become prostitutes. You know that the police were calling miners' wives prostitutes during the miners' strike. This is the way that oppressive scumbags speak to people they're trying to intimidate and threaten by degrading them and sticking these degrading labels on them. And this is what you've done to me, and you're just the most unbelievable snob and hypocrite. I just can't think of anyone I've ever encountered who is more hypocritical than you. And I mean, particularly when you consider that you're the prostitute. You've done worse than sell your body, you've sold your soul. You go along with this system to enslave and eliminate everybody. You're the whore, and you're going round telling everybody all over the world it's me, and now I've got all these scumbags harassing me everywhere, thinking they're bloody helping me, and all of this is because of you. And other people are quite deluded, thinking they're helping me, forcing this crap on me. I don't need anything. I don't need anybody. I'm sick to death of all your crap. And I'm sick to death of all the crap that other people think is helping me, forcing their bullshit on me all the time. Anyway, I shall leave it there for now, but I shall say some more about these videos because, as I said, when you're talking about so-called spiritual life, so-called spirituality, you're even more insane than when you talk about other things because you don't even connect with any reality at all. It's like a stream of consciousness, and you think you can redefine words, and you just string sentences together that with words that sound good in a poetic fashion, and it doesn't really mean anything. You're only promoting a political agenda, trying to manipulate the outcome you want, and trying to sound like you're some kind of fantastic spiritual guru, and you've got more insight into human life and spiritual expression than anybody else, and it's just complete baloney. You're as mad as a hatter. Anyway, I shall leave it there for now, otherwise I shall be uploading the video until Friday. But don't forget, I know where you're going to be this week, so I shall probably be turning up to arrest you. And of course, you will be venerating me, won't you, because of all the suffering you've caused me, because you did say that you're supposed to venerate people who are facing great suffering. So you'll be venerating me. And also, you'll be warmly shaking my hand and thanking me for drawing your attention to the fact that you share a birthday with your political idol, Donald Trump. And also, of course, I'm still on the lookout for the priest I'm going to be seducing, when you're in prison. And then we'll be laying in each other's arms, laughing at what a loser you are. So you've got that to look forward to. And of course, you'll be in a Category A prison as well because you're a terrorist, and because of that, you'll have the lights on 24 hours a day. Although you're such a precious snowflake, they might give you a dimmer switch, I suppose, or a rose-coloured light bulb. And they don't really like sex offenders in prison, do they, the other prisoners? But don't worry about that because I'm sure your burly cellmate will be very understanding. So you can stick all that in your pipe and smoke it. But don't forget, be alert. Hasta la próxima.
Winning our neighbour for God. If we're trying to reimagine what it is to lead the Christian life together, I think I would underline particularly two words which need redefining. One is life, one is gain. Life here, the life that is with the neighbour, is primarily and precisely the life that is being free to let God give through you. Being free to let God give through you. Because all these various pathologies of the spirit which arise in the common life, the urge to cement your superiority, the urge to pass judgment and to shut out, all of these are ways of not allowing God to give through you. And gaining the brother, gaining the neighbour, gain is conceived purely and simply as the freedom that comes from that transparency to God as it's experienced by another person. And that puts some very severe questions to a lot of what we take for granted about common life. What if the real criteria for vital common life had to do with our failure or success in connecting another person with the possibility of reconciliation or of wholeness? Whether we are able to connect someone else with reconciliation and wholeness. And we connect not by successfully ordering their lives towards reconciliation and wholeness, not by triumphantly solving their problems, as we would love to do. We connect by our own willingness to face our weakness and our faults, our own connectedness with God's mercy. And to live like that requires, obviously, a pervasive critical awareness of how much in church and world we are encouraged to be competitive, to imagine success in terms of the other's loss. And we pretend it isn't so, but as a matter of fact, in church or world, that's the model we work with. I sometimes wonder what life in the church would be like if we had never, ever developed the concept of winning and losing. In many of the great controversies that face the church at the moment, many of those controversies, it seems to me increasingly clear that nobody's going to win. In other words, there is not going to be a situation of sublime clarity in which one group's views will prevail because the other group simply says, "Oh, I see it all now." But if we're not in the business of winning and losing like that, what does the church look like? What if we were sufficiently unafraid, and there's a key word, sufficiently unafraid to be able to put winning and losing on the back burner, to move away from the notion that my triumph is another's loss? What if we were able to think of the health of the Christian community in terms of our ability or otherwise, our freedom or otherwise, to connect one another with the wellsprings of reconciliation.